Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to walk you through the week ending November 16, 2025, of what's happened with the markets and the impacts on the markets, which drive the market trends for the past week. Here's a brief bio about myself. I'm a CPA. I have a wide range of experience from different positions I've held over the last 35 years. I've worked with some of the largest organizations across geography and industry. So I'll talk a bit about dividend yields, EPS roundup, and just the overall markets. This kind of gives you a good token. So I took this from Seeking Alpha, which is a really incredible site. So it kind of gives you the dividend yields year to date and just what's happened recently with the quarterly results. And you're just seeing a bunch of companies there. The ones that should come out of notoriety to people that are familiar with it would be Polaris, which makes consumer goods like snowmobiles and watercraft pleasure crafts. Sunoco is a packaging company, so it should give you some insight into kind of where the dividend yields are and also where they are at the year-to-date basis as well. If we look at the EPS side of in terms of what companies have achieved, this was a pretty good week for earnings in terms of overall, but it shows you where the companies have achieved their EPS and where they have lagged this quarter. And the third quarter is a good indication of what's happening because when we saw in the first two quarters of this year, we saw the impact of Donald Trump's policies and some of the pivoting organizations were doing on their supply chain as part of dealing with potential tariffs and other geopolitical issues. This gives you an idea of the overall market. And if you look at the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq, all were up week over week. Actually, except for the Nasdaq, which was down. But most cases, the weeks had a positive outcome. The Nasdaq was impacted, and I'll get more details into it around a sell-off around what's going on in the technology sector, especially in the AI area. Here's some key movers. If you look at the far left-hand side, you're seeing NVIDIA, Microsoft, Salesforce, Chevron, and Cisco were key drivers at the end of the week. If we look at the right-hand side for the Dow, we saw United Health, Nike, American Express, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs had a bit of a decline near the end of the week. If we look at the NASDAQ now, we're seeing DoorDash, Microtechnology, Warner Brothers Discovery, Diamondback, Workday had a bit of an uptick because there's a lot of activity was happening with Warner Brothers around their results, so how they're pivoting around their next phase of their capital asset management side. Diamondback is an oil and energy company, and we're seeing a bit around what's happening with pricing and capacity. And Workday made a few announcements this week as well, and they're heavy in the AI and accounting and software space. If we look at the right-hand side, we're seeing Solstice Strategy, PayPal, Netflix, and Lam Research. Lam Research is in the semiconductor area, and we've seen up and down stuff going on, especially with the chips of where global dominance is happening. PayPal has had some struggles lately, and we're seeing some changes around management structure at PayPal and around Netflix as well in terms of how they're pivoting. This gives you an idea of the S&P. Similar companies that we saw there, but I'll highlight GE Vernova because that's a key area around power generation, especially with the nuclear focus, as well as what's going on with the data center build out. This is the TSX. So the TSX gives you a little bit of what's going up, and the TSX rebounded and had a positive week after declining in the previous week. So this kind of gives you an idea of some charts and information of what's happening on the trends. Here's a look at the Europe side in terms of where the market shakers are in Europe as well. And it kind of gives you an idea what's going on with the market there in terms of the companies. This is basically looking at Australia nickel, and this gives you a little bit more on the Asian side in terms of what's happening there. Asia is a big area because the U.S. is focused on some trade issues with South Korea and Japan over the past few weeks. This is Australia. Australia is driven a lot by what's going on in the resources, and if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see key rare metal companies seeing some uptick and seeing some swings because of the commitment the U.S. is making in developing Australia rare critical metals as part of the overall supply chain. We're also seeing some challenges with the LNG sector in Australia, as well as some issues around iron ore. So that kind of gives you what's going on there. So we've had a busy week this week with the government coming back. We're expecting the employment stats to come out. Retail sales are coming out for Canada, and we'll start to see a bit more government data as well as other data. I leverage multiple data points, both from the government sites, banks, as well as industry sites as well. Here's some key links to other information that I compile on a weekly, daily basis. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me by my email. Thank you. And I have this presentation and other information. If you require or would like a copy of it, then by all means reach out to or contact me by Outlook, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Thank you.